What am I hearing? Like a spaceship or something? Did something just land? Hey, whoa, what is this?
I got this new VW ID4 to check out. I've got like, I don't know, 6 things to talk about.
Oh, cool. There's like 6 things I want to test out too. Let's do it.
Awesome. Hop in and let's go in depth.
We're about to start the show. Are you doing a Sudoku puzzle?
Yeah, I like to keep my brain sharp.
But like once you've solved a few puzzles, what have you really learned?
Oh yeah, good point. Well, what do you suggest?
I mean, how about a course on science from our friends at Brilliant who sponsored the show?
You know, you're right. I spend so much time doing these puzzles, but what am I actually getting out of it?
Right. For instance, with Brilliant's course on scientific thinking, for example, you'll be challenging your brain and learning all sorts of fun science stuff like how gears and circuits work.
That sounds like way more fun.
And we can put that knowledge to use when we build our upcoming electric bike sidecar project.
Electric bike sidecar project!
Brilliant makes learning stick in your brain because all Brilliant's courses have storytelling and interactive problem solving and hints.
Join Jesse and I in a community of 8 million learners and educators today on Brilliant.
To support our channel and learn more about Brilliant, go to brilliant.org/nowyouknow and sign up for free.
And also, the first 200 people that go to that link will get 20% off the annual premium subscription.
And we're brought to you by A Better Route Planner. Did you know that you can actually use A Better Route Planner through Android Auto in the ID4?
Before we get into our review, let's take a look at what the VW ID4 has to offer.
Let's give it a shot, see how it feels. I'll start from a little bit slower. All right, now I'm flooring it. And
You're flooring it?
I'm flooring it. It's all the way down.
Oh, wow. If you had been flooring this in a Tesla,
I'd be going 100. Yeah, I'd be going 100 miles an hour. For a straightaway, you don't feel the rear wheel as much. Like, you don't know that it's a rear wheel necessarily. I've had a couple instances where I've tried to pull out onto a street, and that felt a lot more sketchy. But again, yeah, the power really isn't there. It's peppy compared to probably most gas cars, but...
Oh, but wait, I know what it is. You must not be in sport mode.
No, I was in sport mode. I think that the Volkswagen team definitely didn't want to have people running out of range. All right, so I'm going to try and get in this lane. I'm flooring it. You know, I was able to do it. I'll be honest. Like, there was some power, but it wasn't overwhelming. What I like in my car is that the power is overwhelming. I know for a fact that even if the person in the left lane decides, oh, I want to be going 10 miles an hour faster, that there's no way that they're going to catch me out, doing a lane change, and that they're not going to run into me, basically. However, I think that for most people, once you're at 70 miles an hour, your car is pretty tame to begin with.
All right, so if you could give us like one word to sum up the power in the ID4, what would it be?
Minimum viable.
The VW ID4 charges at a max of 125 kilowatts, which for those of you who don't know anything about anything, or like, I don't know what that number means, that's basically half the max charging speed of a Model 3 or a Model Y. So that means you pull into a charger, the max amount of power you can get out of that charger for this car is 125 kilowatts. That's not really that great, I gotta be honest. So that's immediately like kind of a bummer for me. I was expecting 200, 250 would be awesome. And then this car is not that efficient. We've been getting on the highway about 333 watt hours per mile. To put that in perspective, because you're like, what does that mean? That's like talking about MPG for an ICE car. And to compare that to a Model 3 or a Model Y, you're looking at about 250 watt hours per mile in a Model 3 or about 270 watt hours per mile in a Model Y on the highway. So it's a lot less efficient. So if I was looking for a word to sum up charging speed on the VW ID4, I guess I would say unimpressed.
The mirrors are nice and big, so I do get a pretty great view out the back, and then it also has the little don't lane change kind of light that turns on, and I like that. I think that that's nice as well.
How about your rear view mirror?
Yeah, that one's fine. I don't have any complaints about it. And then, in terms of like looking back, great visibility there.
So what's your word to sum up the visibility in the ID4?
Good.
The The seats are comfy. This is very comfy. Like, I think Sandy Munro said, this would be a very good cab driver car. Like, it's very comfortable. There's a lot of leg room in the back. As you're seeing here, we've got our buddy Jeff who's trying it out to see how he fits, and he's 6'7", and he fit pretty well in the back seat. So, I mean, that's nice. There's a lot of room for the passengers. AC, a little slow to start. Like, when you get in a car on a hot day, you want the AC to just fire on, and this car like takes a while, so that's kind of a bummer. But other than that, it works well. Now, we tried to use the app control, so you have a VW app to control things, and it just was very wonky, very hard to use as a user. And Tesla's app isn't perfect, and there's a lot of things we want to have on the Tesla app, but the VW app just reminded me of how hard it is for big car companies to make an app. It just didn't seem user-friendly, especially with the AC. Like, you know how you get out of the car and you want to leave the AC running because you're going to be in the store for a few minutes or whatever? We just couldn't figure out how to do that. So to wrap up comfort and seats and all that in the ID4, I guess I would say good.
So I was playing around with the navigation, as I like to do. In my car, in my Tesla, I would usually, when I'm trying to show people what charging looks like, I'll just say like, navigate to San Francisco or navigate to, Savannah, Georgia. Just somewhere far away where I'm going to need to make some charging stops. And the Tesla is very good about, organizing and finding the right charging spots and how long I'm going to have to charge at each one. The nice thing about this car is it'll do the same thing. If you say I want to go to a certain place, it'll find chargers for you. The problem that I ran into was it would take me a day to drive there, but it would also take me a day to charge. So I was looking and I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It had routed me to a level 2 charger for 9 hours. So in addition to going to some of the fast charging stations, it also just brought me to like some town hall with a level 2 charger, and it wanted me to stay there for 9 hours.
Next, I need you to sum up in one word the charging navigation in the ID4.
Worrying.
Well, there's about 30 cubic feet of cargo space, and again, for a lot of us, that number doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's not a big number for a car that's designed, it's a CUV. It's designed to put stuff in the back. When you open the back, you're just like, this is it? This is all the room I get? As we're showing you here, you think you're going to get more because there's a thing you can pull out and you can see underneath, and you only get 3 more inches of space. So it's like, yeah, there's just not a lot of cargo space. It's really unimpressive. There's no frunk in this car. I mean, this is an electric car. We've all come to expect some kind of frunk. Even the BMW i3 has a frunk. Now, you can only put a gallon of milk in it, but there's frunk space. Here, there's absolutely no frunk, so you're not going to use that for storage at all. And that's a real bummer because that's kind of one of the big things we all expect from an EV now, and that's non-existent in the ID4, which I'm really surprised about. Now, the rear seats do fold down, of course, and you would be able to sleep in the back of the ID4, but there's no real easy way to put your stuff in the back. Like, it's just not a big back storage area. The Chevy Volt, for example, Brent's got one, and we can just put anything in the back of that thing, like e-bikes and so forth. This, it just seems very limited. It seems like unless you're going to just carry very limited, light travel stuff, you're going to be disappointed sometime when you need to fit something big. I mean, because we want a car like this for occasionally putting some odd items in there or lots of items, and this car is just not going to do that for you. I guess if I had to sum up cargo space in the VW ID4, I'd say minuscule.
This is the in-car navigation. I can also connect my phone through Android Auto, and there I can have 3 other types of navigational tools. I could either use Google Maps, I could use Waze, I can even use a better route planner.
How do you like their stock navigation?
Oh, I hate it. Oh, I hate it so much. The screen is small. It's not particularly responsive in the way that you want it to be. And it's a little confusing, like, okay, I've zoomed out to the point where it's no longer helpful to me. What button would you press to get back to regular navigation?
Oh, maybe that one.
Oh, see, you moved your finger and then you can see it. See, oh, wait, it's about to disappear. Oh, disappeared.
Wait.
It's this one. The
oh,
A
that,
with the...
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, so that's the button. It took me about 20 minutes to figure that out, and the whole time I'm looking at like Manitoba, Canada. When I'm using Android Auto on my phone, it's cooking my phone. My phone got very, very hot. I had it down in the wireless charger. The wireless charger couldn't keep up with how much energy needed to be used by my phone. apparently.
All right, so if you had to choose one word to sum up the navigation in the ID4, and I'm not talking about the other, like a better route planner or something like that, just stock.
Abysmal.
I was really wondering what the autopilot, or travel assist as VW calls it, would be like in this car. We tested it out on the highway, and it did a pretty good job of basically keeping me in the lane, keeping me the right distance from the car in front of me. But here's my big problem. So it did feel good in terms of acceleration and braking. Like, I was very pleased with it. What I didn't like was going in and out of it. So when you go into it, you're kind of like, am I in it? And when you go out of it, you're like, am I out of it? And that's a dangerous thing. And we saw the same thing in the Ford Mach-E. So you get no audible warning when you go into it, and you just get this lights up a certain color on the screen. So you have to actually be looking at it and glancing down and knowing what it means. And then when it kicks you out, you get a very tiny audible warning, and it's really hard to know that you're out, which means that if you weren't paying attention, you thought the car was still driving, you would just drive off the road. So I don't know why both Ford and VW can't seem to just tell the driver loudly, like Tesla does, like, doo-doom, you're out. But they haven't, and I find that to be very problematic. So there's this big light bar we're showing you here in the front of the car, and it's a really cool feature. I like that when, you need to take a right turn, for instance, or a left turn, you get the bar that lights up to tell you to do that. That's a cool feature. Kudos to VW on that. They could have used that feature with Travel Assist to let you know, like, bright red, you're out, or, bright green, you're going in. They didn't. Over the air update, you should do that, VW, because that would be super helpful. You got the LED there, let's use it. You have to put your hands on the wheel about every 10 seconds to let it know that you're driving. But it's different than a Tesla, where it doesn't feel obvious that you've pulled it out. When you pull it out, there's no difference in how it feels. So you could easily pull it out and drive right off the highway. So if I were summing up VW's autonomous driving, I would have to say scary.
It's clunky. It's very non-responsive. It's glitchy and stuff doesn't happen the moment you do it. It's hard to find what you want to do. Like, there's 12 icons here. So like, okay, vehicle. Here's where you can adjust different things. But then if I go back, there's settings. And now I can't use settings because I'm driving. Okay, fair enough. But I could adjust vehicle settings. Oh, and then this is the home screen. So I can see my audio, I can get back to that vehicle screen, or I could do telephone stuff. It seems like it was designed by either too many people or not enough people. Sometimes I'll swipe my hand and it'll be a gesture. Of course, I can't get it to work when I want it to. You're supposed to just be able to minority report this. Oh, see, I did it, but I didn't know what I just did. And that's not what I want. And I'm Italian, so I will move my hands around and it'll throw things off. So like, okay, cool. You saw it happen. It happened, and now I didn't do anything. Like, I just want to see the map, and then it'll show me like restaurants on my route when the route is literally like 5 miles away. And that to me is just annoying. I think that they're really trying to do their best to make everything fit onto this screen. And of course they had to add these buttons down here. So you have the Klima. Couldn't you have just added a T and an E? And now it takes up the entire screen up here. And then to make it go away, do you hit the off button or do you hit the X button? When you're driving and you hit the, oh, now I don't have any AC and I still can't see where I'm going. Like, oh, and now I have AC off. And now it won't turn on, and I just turned on my seat heater somehow. And now I tap that and it opens up this entire screen. Meanwhile, I'm hitting people on the side of the road, like, and then it won't show me my settings while I'm driving, but it'll show me this giant screen, and it's just stressful. I think that you could get used to it, especially if you maybe didn't rely on the actual screen for what you're doing with the car. If you had a phone mount, and the phone mount was your navigation, and this was just car stuff.
All right, so one word to sum up UI, and it might not be fair to ask you after you've had a frustrating time with it, so don't say frustrating.
Clunky.
Okay.
It's clunky.
All right, so next up is price in the VW ID4, and that's someplace that I think VW got right. They tried really hard to keep the price down, and coming in at a base price of $39,900, I think was really good of them, really smart. Because if you compare that to, let's say, a competition like the Model Y, where you're coming in at 53, 54, that's quite a price difference. And VW still gets the full federal tax credit. Even if no new law is passed, they're going to get the $7,500 tax credit. So that's going to bring your price way down. And I think that's super smart because, look, let's be honest, many of us are on a budget. And so when we're looking for a CUV, we're going to look around and see what we can afford. And having 250 miles of range with that price, I think is really smart. Now, the one we're driving now is the Pro S, which is one of the more expensive trim levels. It's the rear-wheel drive, so it's 44.4. If we were to get the all-wheel drive, then it's 48.2. So I guess to sum up price for the VW ID4, I would say more affordable.
So for ride comfort, I would say that the suspension is completely fine. For bumps and stuff like that, it's not too hard, it's not too soft. You feel bumps and stuff like that, but they aren't jarring. It's completely, reasonable feeling. When it comes to performance, the suspension feels cheap. Sandy Munro talked about it in his teardown of the ID4. It's just a cheap suspension that they threw on the car, I think to save money. I don't like the way that it feels. There's a ton of body roll when you are doing any kind of turning.
So if you have to choose one word to sum up the drive quality in the VW ID4, what would it be?
Acceptable.
All right, so everybody asks all the time about fit and finish, especially since, Model 3 had some problems in the beginning. So what is the VW ID4 like with fit and finish? I would say it's really good. I mean, this feels like any VW to me. There's a couple little things on the outside. We're showing you here the Pro S badge where, surprise, surprise, it doesn't line up. So that shows you that it is pretty hard to get every single line on a car to line up perfectly. And for all the crap that VW threw at Tesla saying like, we've been doing this for over 100 years and we can get that right all the time. No, you can't get it right all the time. It takes a lot of work to get every body panel to line up perfectly. But having said that, the body panels do line up pretty well in this car. Everything feels really tight. The interior feels like a VW interior. So I would say, summing up the fit and finish on a VW ID4, it's top notch.
I would say that the speakers are pretty good. This is the top of the line. I noticed a distinct lack of bass in my Model 3. I can feel it in my skull. I can feel it on my scalp. I can feel it on my teeth. It's a big half-in subwoofer. I don't feel as much subwoofer bass on this. It's very clean sound. It sounds great. But if I wanted to listen to heavier stuff with a little bit more punchy bass kind of stuff, it isn't as chest rumbling as it could be. But compared to most cars, I think that it's perfectly acceptable.
So I just wanted to ask you, as part of the audio, I know this version comes with satellite radio. I'm not a huge fan of it.
I gave it a little test. I gave it a little try. It was a rainy day, and basically it cut out every 3 seconds. And it is cool with Android Auto. You can use Spotify. You can use Audible. So you have choices there, and you can do it all on screen, which I think is really nifty. But when it comes to in-car radio and stuff, it's what is VW going to do? Reinvent satellite radio?
One word to sum up audio quality in the VW ID4.
I would say for audio quality, it's pleasing. For satellite radio, I would say disappointing.
All right, so let's wrap up how we feel about the ID4. Any surprises, any disappointments that you felt after giving it a lot of driving? Because you've been driving around in it for days.
Yeah, I took it long distance. I went 3 states away.
Tell me about your charging experience.
I started with a full charge. I drove all the way to Portland, Maine, which is far away, as you know. So that was about a 100-mile drive. When I started, I had it said 280 miles of range. So I was like, great, I'll get there with 180 miles of range. Of course, I didn't get there with 180 miles of range. It was less. So drove to Portland, parked, had a wonderful time in Portland. As I was driving home, the car automatically routed me to an Electrify America charger. Once we got closer to the charger, though, I hit more traffic, slowed down, used less energy. It said that I could make it without it, but I wanted to try charging anyway, and plus we would get home with maybe 20 or 30 miles, which is just too low. But it had erased it from the trip, so I had to go find it on the crappy UI, Not my favorite thing to do. I think that was probably a weird edge case, but it brings me to the Panera. The charger's like a quarter of a mile away through a parking lot. I pull into the one station that is 350 kilowatts and has the plug on the right-hand side. I get out, charger's not working. So I go to the other charger. I like pull through it and back up. It was weird looking, not what you're supposed to do.
And that's just to get to the right spot on the car to charge?
Yeah, and I mean, the spot on the car isn't that weird. It's just the right-hand rear. So, like, think of a gas cap. There's only like 4 stalls, and only 3 of them are super fast. Now, did I need to use the super fast one? Maybe not. But anyway, I pull in. I can use a credit card, so I try and use my credit card. Payment declined. Try it again. Payment declined. Go for a second credit card. Same problem. Go for a third credit card. Payment processing. For 5 minutes, nothing happens. So call customer support. Right away, nice person answers the phone. They ask me what the charger number is. I can read it through the, because this is glass, I could just make out the thing. So I read it, and he says, okay, why don't you unplug it and plug it back in again. So I do that. Then he says, okay, this time, unplug it, plug it back in again, use the card, but support the charger.
What?
So I was like, what the heck are you talking about? He said, so plug it in and then give it an extra push and hold it up while it begins to charge.
What?
So I do that. The payment goes through and the charging begins. I can put it back down and now it's charging at, hundreds of 100 kilowatt. So that was weird. And, the whole time I'm in a Walmart parking lot. There's people walking to and from their cars, and this charger is very loud. So people are always going to be looking over, what is that? And it's kind of weird. So people are just, walking right by the car. Very uncomfortable feeling. You don't get that too much with a Tesla supercharger because it's usually not next to a Walmart specifically.
Okay, I want to go to charging speed though. This car charges at a max speed of 125 kilowatts. Were you pulling that at any point?
So I started charging at 26% state of charge. I was pulling basically 125 kilowatts. It steadily declined the charging rate as it does with a supercharger. At 80% state of charge, I was still pulling 60 kilowatts,
nice,
which is very respectable. So I was very happy about that because if you remember with the Mach-E, we hit 80% state of charge and it dropped down to like 20 kilowatts, right, which is very slow.
But I just want to go back to this problem that you had. Did he explain why this is and what?
It sounded like it was a connection problem. It sounded like it wouldn't communicate properly.
And it can't be the car because it's a brand new car.
It's brand new, right. And I mean, the charger isn't that old either.
Right.
I went into it as the experience of someone who had never fast charged before. Someone who didn't have, the app all set up with their account and their membership and all of that.
Right, trying to be a newbie.
Because, I think a lot of people are going to buy this car and it's going to say, hey, you have to go charge. And I'm going to go, oh, okay.
And imagine if you had that bad experience and you weren't even able to charge or something. I want to talk about some of my disappointments. One was the fact that there's no frunk. I mean, it's an electric car. Yeah. There's no reason for it to not have a frunk. My other disappointment is the lack of cargo space. It's a big CUV, typical size you'd expect, and you expect you can throw a lot in one of those. And then I was like, there's really not a lot of space back here.
Well, you're very spoiled. I think that for most people who drive gas cars, that's the amount of space you get. There's usually an engine up front. There's usually,
right,
not as much space down below. In fact, they have a little spot for the charger which would usually be where the muffler went.
But, this is my point. I'm worried that a lot of people who go to VW dealerships to test drive this are going to come back nonplussed. And they're going to be like, so what's the big deal with EVs anyway? And that's going to just push them back a few years. And I think that the dealers are going to be happy. They're going to be like, great, this thing's not going to be a hot seller. So it's going to keep our ICE sales nice and solid.
Well, it's not necessarily like a loss leader, but you have, one of these parked out front, the VW dealership. Someone who is thinking of maybe going electric goes and they look at it. They go for a test drive. The dealer's sitting right there, and they go, yeah, I think you're probably going to want to go with the Jetta or the Tiguan or the something else. And I think that this is nice. It is a VW, and so it has a consistent brand experience. And then you get in a gas-powered one that might even be a little bit faster, and you go, oh yeah, that's even nicer.
Another thing that was disappointing to me was that while you're driving, there's so many settings that you can't get into and you can't adjust. Like I was really excited to check out the suspension settings while we were driving, and you can't.
Right. I mean, they have the driving mode section. They have the custom driving mode. And it's like, am I really going to have to like go to a parking lot, drive around, test out the suspension, and then bring the car to a complete stop, park it, then go to the mode settings? There's so many different things like that. And you're just like, why? There's so many other menus in the car where you can get really deep and there's lots of reading. And it's like, if the whole argument is that it's dangerous to use the screen, then it's dangerous to use the screen. Don't let me do anything or make the UI better so that way I don't have to interact with the screen very much. So that, yeah, is frustrating.
I just wouldn't brought so much attention to this screen, bringing it up above the dash if it's going to be so lousy. Like it should have been back down here. It's just, to me, it's already outdated looking.
It is. I think the problem is that we're supposed to be using our phones with it, that I'm supposed to somehow strap my cell phone somewhere on the front dash and be using that because, I mean, yes, it has Android Auto, but first of all, Android Auto sucks my battery away. Even when it's sitting in the wireless charger, I'm losing charge. It's cooking my phone.
I think the only place that VW nailed it is price. I think coming in at $39,900 for the base model, that being so much cheaper than a Model Y, means that it will get a lot of people to come check it out. And they might like it and go, hey, you know what? Maybe it's not a Model Y, but I can't budget a Model Y.
Right. I think it's price and range. I mean, right now you can go to a Nissan dealership and pick up a Leaf with the federal tax credit for less than $20,000. Of course, the range is 150 miles, where this is more like 200, 250, depending on how you drive. So yeah, I mean, I think that the range is really what makes it worth it at this price point. But if you have a little bit more money, going up to a Model 3 or a Model Y is like something that you're going to want to do if you test drive a Model Y or a Model 3.
Now, I know that we're Tesla fanboys. I know you're watching this now, like, of course nothing's going to impress you but a Tesla. I really went into this hoping that VW would impress me on some levels and make me walk away with a smile on my face for certain things, but there really wasn't anything that made me excited. It was all just kind of blah. And that's what I'm like, guys, you made me wait this long for the ID4. Like, if this had come out in 2017, like, okay, maybe I would have been like, good job. But like, this is 4 years later and there's nothing exciting.
Well, this makes me really worried about the MEB platform. This car is built on the MEB platform, and it's not a very exciting platform. The Model 3 platform is a very exciting platform. Right. You get the Model Y, it's just the same performance as the Model 3 practically. This just feels kind of clunky, feels kind of blah. Not that it has to be a race car. I guess I'm just used to a race car. Maybe for most people this is going to feel very sporty and very tight controls or something like that. I was nonplussed. I think the best feature of this car is this sunroof.
Okay.
It's so cool.
It is cool.
I wouldn't buy a car based off of it.
I honestly think copying the Model 3 and the Model Y by putting the glass ceiling was a smart thing to do. Everything I like about this car is the copy of Tesla. Like
right.
anything they tried to copy from Tesla was smart for them to do. But I'll tell you one thing, this is not a Tesla killer.
No.
Like, there's no way that this thing is going to be a Tesla killer in my mind. They just haven't done it. They haven't knocked anything out of the park.
And without the tax credit, this would be a non-starter.
Yep.
It would be like, oh, well, I guess if you have to have the VW badge plate, that would be the only thing. The tax credit is what makes it, and we know that it's temporary.
Yeah, because let's be honest, the only thing that made the Chevy Bolt move off the lot was the price. I mean, they were putting a lot of incentives, GM was, into it. So unless VW is able to also add some huge incentives, I don't think this thing's going to move that much.
Again, what I think it is it's just enough, but still too little. It's just enough for people to go, yeah, well, I can't say too much bad things about it, but it's too little for people to go, wow, I can't wait to switch to a VW ID4.
And you know what's interesting? If there was no Tesla, if this was one of the cars to choose from, the sad thing is it would show that electric cars are just kind of a boring alternative to ICE cars. And everyone would go, well, I guess to save the environment, I'll get one. It shows you that Big Auto was not going to be the one that was going to bring you the exciting electric car. And this is with them trying to play catch up to Tesla, and they still haven't brought it. And your point about the MEB platform, I didn't even think about that until later, and I had to look it up. I was like, there's no way this is on the MEB platform. It is, and that's really sad because so many of their future cars are supposed to come out on this awesome new platform. We felt a similar car when we drove the e-Golf, which to me was actually had more fun to it.
It was tighter. It was more fun to drive. Even though the acceleration was lower, it still felt punchier. I mean, maybe this, MEB platform just means the batteries, and maybe what we're going to have is, improved suspension and improved motors and improved, motor controllers and stuff like that to make for a more punchy vehicle in some future GT version. If this is what the MEB platform is, I'm very not excited for whatever else shape they're going to be putting on this.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you to our patrons for supporting us, because if it weren't for them, we couldn't spend so much time doing this kind of review. Stay tuned next week when we're going to compare this car to the Model Y.
Thanks so much for watching. Now you know.